Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. It is Friday, October 14th, and we're here to talk about a matter of public information that we think is important to everyone who lives in Westchester County. I'm joined by the Chair of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, Catherine Borgia, and our Director of Sustainability, Energy, Environment, and a host of other things, Peter McCart, here in our executive branch. The thing that we want to talk about today is an item that you as a voter will get a chance to make a choice on Tuesday, November 8th, which is upcoming Election Day. Early voting will begin on Saturday, October 29th. And normally in a governmental context, we don't talk about elections and what happens on Election Day. In this particular case, we're not talking about a campaign and a candidacy for office, but we're talking about a matter of public policy that will be on the ballot for you as an individual to decide whether you support or oppose. Many referenda come before us as individual voters, and they often are like passages in the night. We don't know much about them, and sometimes we don't even realize they're on the ballot. Every year there are a number of them. Last year there were 5 from the state. We had one from the county on an ethics issue, and voters find out about them in whatever way they do. But we think this is important enough to bring it to your attention so that over the course of the next few weeks, you'll focus attention, do the homework that you need to do to get a good sense of what kind of position you should take, and of course the impacts of what that decision will make. We're talking about the 2022 New York State Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act. The Bond Act is a $4.2 billion allocation of funding at the state government level, and because of the size of the Bond Act, it requires voter approval. So you will have the choice to vote yes or no on the Bond Act. As part of that process, one of the most important things to realize is that the front of the ballot, when you receive it to vote, will have the names of candidates running for the various public offices. You have to flip the ballot over to see the referendum issue on the rear. Now, there are parts of this county that you live in, you'll see additional referenda items on, Village of Tuckahoe, Village of Hastings, and there are others out there that have local issues of some size or another. But the Proposition 1 is the statewide New York State Bond Act issue. And it's so important we decided to give you a way to remind yourself that you need to flip the ballot over. This November 8th, don't forget to flip over your ballot to vote on Proposition 1.
Flip it over.
To safeguard clean drinking water.
Flip it over.
To improve air quality.
Flip it over.
To mitigate the impacts of floods and extreme heat.
Flip it over.
To update New York's roads, sewer systems, and water pipes.
Flip it over.
To support 100,000 good-paying jobs for New Yorkers.
Flip it over, please.
To advance environmental justice in communities most affected by pollution. The choice is yours to flip it over for clean water, clean air, and green jobs with no tax increase. Flip it over. We've also made available for individuals a card that outlines some of the key items that this bond will cover, and a QR code in the back that will help connect you to some additional information. Now, Peter McCart is the person in our administration who stays closest to these environmental issues, and I've asked him to give an idea of what types of projects would occur were this Bond Act to pass, so that you have an idea of what the substance is of what you're voting for. It's not enough for somebody to say vote for or against something. You need to know the content. So, Peter, walk us through some of the different issues involved in the Bond Act.
Sure thing. So, safeguard clean drinking water. The Bond Act will help communities make critical updates to water and sewer lines, replace lead pipes, and maintain water treatment plants to ensure our drinking water is safe and clean. Expand parks and farms. We all need access to parks and open space for physical and mental health, as very well evidenced in the recent pandemic. Proposition 1 will fund environmental restoration, farmland protection, wildlife conservation, and park improvements. Advance environmental justice. For too long, many marginalized communities have been denied access to clean air and water. Prop 1 will help address inequities by directing 35% to 40% of total funding to disadvantaged communities. Protect clean air. The Bond Act will improve public health and reduce air pollution by paying for clean school buses, which is something Westchester's really been pushing for with all our communities. They're very expensive, the infrastructure and the vehicle itself. Planting street trees and retrofitting public buildings to improve energy efficiency and air filtration. Support jobs. If approved by voters in November, the Bond Act would support nearly 100,000 local family-sustaining jobs. And there's a big need for our workforce development here all over the state. Update infrastructure, replacing lead pipes, upgrading sewers, fixing roads, retrofitting buildings, and developing clean energy all create jobs and strengthen local economies. And this really is about our local economies.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Now, this Bond Act was put on the ballot by members of the New York State Legislature in the Assembly and the Senate and approved by the governor. It had bipartisan support in its operation. Both Democrats and Republicans were in support of it. It was not a unanimous vote. There was opposition as well. In the process of looking at how local governments have responded to this, we've surveyed the different villages, towns, and cities in Westchester County, and a number of communities have come out, local boards, elected boards, have come out in favor of the Bond Act. At this point, there are none that have come out against the Bond Act. An incomplete list would include the village of Ossining, the town of Ossining, the town of Bedford, the village of Hastings-on-Hudson, the village of Larchmont, the town of Mamaroneck, the village of Croton-on-Hudson, and the village of Dobbs Ferry all have issued resolutions in support of this. And obviously, for my purposes, the most important legislature that I deal with is where I was an alma mater of, which is the Westchester County Board of Legislators. So the chair of that board, Catherine Boyce, will talk a little bit about the Board of Legislators establishing a public position on this issue.
Thank you. Thank you, George. The County Board of Legislators at our last legislative session did pass a resolution in support of this Bond Act. The reason we took this up is because we know that the impact of this will have on improving our aging infrastructure here in Westchester County. One of the reasons why we think it's important for a community like Westchester to speak up on this is not only because we typically are leaders in the counties in New York State, but also because we are a community that has very old infrastructure. We're fortunate to have a long history of settlement here in Westchester County, but that does often lead to some issues with aging infrastructure. Peter talked a lot about how the quality of life is impacted by environmental issues. We also feel that Westchester County is the home to many, many, many climate justice communities. I happen to represent two of them, Peekskill and Ossining, and we know that it is only fair for those communities to get their fair share of this money, should the Bond Act be passed, in order to upgrade and make sure that the quality of life for the people of Westchester County is the best that it can be. That is why we took the position. That is why we have a stated position saying we're in favor of this, and why we're urging Westchester County residents to turn the ballot over and please support this resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Don't forget Greenberg.
So, and I've been reminded the town of Greenberg also voted a resolution. There are others as well. That was just off the top of my head. And I'm sure there'll be discussions in many of the different towns, cities, and villages over the course of the next few weeks on this. So very simply to summarize, this is an important issue. It is subject to your opinion. The individuals that will make this happen are not a town board or the county legislature or the state legislature. It's the residents and the citizens of the state of New York, and for our purposes, the residents of Westchester County. We wanted to make sure we raise the visibility of this. These referendum issues are important, and now that you have an opportunity, you can do your homework over the course of the next few weeks. There will be early voting, as I've said, starting on Saturday, October 29th. You can ask for and receive an absentee ballot at any point in time. From this point forward, you can go to the website, our website, westchestergov.com, click on the Board of Elections, and then there's a place where you can go to download a request for an absentee ballot. Obviously, there are certain reasons that the state allows for it, illness, pre-planned travel that will take you out of the area. And you can apply for an absentee ballot and submit it by the appropriate date. And then, of course, that period of time of early voting that begins on the 29th will continue up until the Sunday, the 6th of November, before Election Day being Tuesday, November 8th. Many other campaigns will all communicate with you on their own time frame. For our purposes, as a matter of public policy, we want to highlight this for you. And so we'll remind you one more time with our video, remember to look for it, flip it over, and look for the bond issue and have your vote and your voice be counted. This November 8th, don't forget to flip over your ballot to vote on Proposition 1.
Flip it over.
To safeguard clean drinking water.
Flip it over.
to improve air quality,
Flip it over.
to mitigate the impacts of floods and extreme heat,
Flip it over.
to update New York's roads, sewer systems, and water pipes,
Flip it over.
to support 100,000 good-paying jobs for New Yorkers,
Flip it over, please.
to advance environmental justice in communities most affected by pollution. The choice is yours to flip it over for clean water, clean air, and green jobs with no tax increase. Flip it over.